Welcome to our latest Hoopcast. I'm Pat Dooley. This is Kevin Brockway, and we're going to talk a little Gator basketball with you for a few minutes here. And Florida playing Georgia this weekend. The Gators coming off another loss by a lot of points. They played a little bit better, but Kevin, I still don't think Florida's at the point where you can take moral losses. I mean, this program's established too much to feel good about any loss.
It was kind of a strange game because, for about 30 minutes you're playing with the number 7 team in the country. You have the lead at halftime, and then in the last 9 minutes it completely falls apart. And I think a lot of that probably had to do with Tennessee's depth compared to Florida's depth. And I think Billy has an issue right now trusting his bench because, all 5 of the stars played 30 minutes and they were simply wore out. And that's why I think they missed a lot of their shots down the stretch too. Front rimming a lot of shots. You could see the fatigue becoming a factor.
Well, the lack of a bench is a huge factor for this team. I mean, you really are an 8-man team. I don't count Adam Allen. When he gets in there, he doesn't do a whole lot. And I thought he took an ill-advised 3 in that game. The other thing is, in practice, you're having to go. It's not like you can say, hey, take a breather. You only have 9 guys that can practice plus walk-ons. So this team, you may see this team, now they're halfway through the SEC. You could see this team hit that, especially so many freshmen hit that wall.
Yeah, and I think that's the big thing about the schedule is that you have 5 of your last 8 at home. You're not going to be traveling as much.
Yeah.
One of those road trips is to Georgia, which is a relatively light road trip considering the distance that you travel to Tennessee and to Arkansas. So it's going to be a case of them. They're going to be sleeping in their beds a little bit more, and they're going to have to be very smart about resting their bodies. And they do have that bye week on the 23rd, which certainly will help compared to previous seasons where they've been. They usually win every game in February twice a week.
Of course, the bye week didn't help last time. It didn't help very many people, and you can read more about it in our SEC page. Brandon Zimmerman doing a story on how the bye week hasn't really helped, even though the coaches still say they feel like they're getting all that done. They haven't shown it on the court. Florida now playing Georgia, and as we tape this, we don't know whether Billy Humphrey will play or not. It appears he will not. At least the last thing I read, it looks like a 3-game suspension. He was arrested for underage drinking and crossing against the light. He didn't talk to the hand. But he didn't really do a whole lot. And he was on probation for having a souvenir knife in his room. First of all, Kevin, anybody who portrays this as a bad kid is wrong. I mean, he has really done very little, but at a school that was such a mess and has had so many problems, you've got to watch yourself.
And, and Dennis Felton says it's one of actually his best kids. Yeah. And he's certainly had issues with, Mike Mercer and Takeas Brown being suspended if they don't come down with Humphrey, which it looks like it's not. I mean, how many scholarship guys are they going to have available? I mean, they're going to be in a worse situation certainly than Florida is in terms of having quality guys to go to off the bench.
Yeah, no question, though. They will play good defense. They always do. Their problem has been scoring. They have not gotten to 60 in their last 3 games. So if I like Florida's chances if it's get to 60 and you win, I think the Gators can score 60.
Yeah, at home especially, and they're a more comfortable shooting team at home. Shooting certainly has been an issue on the road with these guys. They came out and I thought they shot the ball very well in the first 10 minutes against Tennessee, but they ended up 5 for 14, 0 of 3 in the second half. And, guys like Chandler Parsons and, Adam Allen, I think we're going to have to give them a little bit more in terms of their 3-point shooting. And Billy talked today a little bit about giving Chandler in particular more confidence to shoot because we did see during the non-conference schedule that he could be a very good shooter and very effective back there.
Yeah, they've got to get more from their bench, there's no question. And they've just got to play better. And we're hitting the stretch now where it's going to basically determine their NCAA fate. And I know they're trying not to look ahead. They're just trying to go game to game. But all season, all SEC season especially, we've all looked at where Florida is. 8 games left, 5 of them at home. They go win 5 at home, lose 3 on the road, they're probably in. But there's no margin for error in that case. I still don't believe that 9-7 is going to get them in unless they do something in the tournament. So they've really got to take care of business at home. And this coming up, Kevin, Saturday Georgia, Wednesday LSU, at home, 2 not very good teams in this conference. They've got to win those games.
Yeah, you got to win the games that you're supposed to win. And then, especially when you look down the stretch, the last 2 at home, Mississippi State and Tennessee. And those are certainly not gimmies by any stretch, even at home with, this team and this team's experience. So you go out, you win the games that you're supposed to win, you maybe steal 1 or 2. I think you're still in good shape, maybe 9 or 7, 10-6 going in the SEC, which I think will get them in the tournament.
Yeah. Well, you can read more about this game coming up at Gatorsports.com. Kevin's got a couple of stories on there, one about the Florida's 3-point shooting, and as well as coming back home and trying to get some momentum going. And I'll have a column up there on Saturday about Georgia and Dennis Felton, and I'm interested in getting your take on this, Kevin, because I gave him a couple of pointed questions today, and here was one of them. If you're such a disciplinarian, why are you guys always getting in trouble? I mean, shouldn't they understand we better not screw up around here?
I think, I think kids get a certain amount of, college kids are going to do things, there's always maturity issues and stuff, but he's definitely laid a hard line, and it's impacted him. But I think some of the academic things, don't forget, were brought down by, Damon Evans. I was going to say Damon Bailey, the former Indiana player.
He also brought some things down, too.
But Damon Evans, the former, because of their APR issues. So some of it hasn't necessarily been Dennis's doing, it's been administration's doing, and certainly that hampers your team. But hey, your kids have to do well in school. You have to identify kids that are going to do well in school, and unfortunately, Dennis hasn't been able to do that yet.
Well, he's in the case of Mike Mercer, he was doing fine in school. He just wasn't going to study hall, so they suspended him. Then he became a disruption in practice. So they've had they've had 10 kids suspended or transferred since he got there. But the other thing is, you think Georgia's about to turn the corner and finally get out of this mess, and this year seems to be a big setback. They suspended, as we said, Takeas Brown, Mike Mercer.
Yeah.
Ron Mercer, I think, was he ever suspended? I don't know, from Kentucky. But Mercer, both their two leading scorers suspended, and now it appears Billy Humphrey, who is barely their second number 2 scorer, will be suspended as well. It's hard to turn things around when you don't have your players.
Yeah, and I had a friend who wrote in preseason magazines, and she was very high on Georgia when you took a look at Takeas Brown and when you took a look at Mike Mercer, that they could have been in the race. But when you lose players, when you lose guys like that, and you're trying to build a foundation, I mean, it just falls apart when you can't have your quality guys in there. And Brown really gave them a presence inside that they've been lacking a little bit this year.
I mean, just imagine if Florida lost their best 6 players from last year. Oh, that's right, they did. Yeah, but they're doing okay. And that's the other thing, and I'll get into this at the column. You can read more about it in Gatorsports.com. Billy did it. I did it at Baylor. Was there a bigger mess than Baylor? And they've turned it around in a short period of time. I think Dennis Felton's going to be okay for another year, but I got to think the seat's getting a little warm.
Yeah, and he's got to show a little bit of progress in terms of but it's a tough division, as you know, because, Tennessee's with Bruce Pearl, Kentucky. But when you take a look at what Bruce Pearl's done, what Andy Kennedy has done, in shorter periods of time, you just got to wonder, guys like Jeff Lebo and guys like Dennis, and even guys that have been around a while like Brady and Gottfried, you got to wonder, what kind of rope they're going to have going forward.
Yeah, Jeff Lebo might want to recruit somebody over 6'3". I think that'd be a good start for him. That's going to do it for our Hoopcast, and we'll be back with the next one before the LSU game. Florida versus Georgia in the O-Dome, Saturday afternoon. We'll come back and talk about that game as well as previewing the LSU game. Until then, Kevin Brockway, Pat Dooley saying so long from the Sunshine State.